Zillennials are living in the Fimbulwinter, the long dark before Ragnarok. That has been their life path so far. Even more so than us core millennials. And what is a Zillennial, you ask? Well, it is the generation that is between the millennials and Zoomers. They are a micro generation, as they call it. And I like this micro generational label a lot better than just these huge, massive generational gaps that we have between millennials and Gen X and the like. Because somebody born in 1981 is not the same as somebody born in 1995, and they had extremely different life trajectories compared to one another. So I think that these micro generational labels is a lot better way of breaking down the dynamics between generations. Now I have a lot of Zillennial viewership on this channel. It is probably the biggest, I think actually, yes, it is the biggest demographic here. And I'm not surprised, to be honest, because I'm just shy of being classified as a Zillennial, but I can relate to them even more so in a lot of ways to my own cohort here because there's something about them that I can relate to more, and that's they're a bit more skeptical of the general narratives that are presented to us from the media, from the whole info apparatus that controls our nation states than millennials were. Millennials still kind of have this need or want to trust in mainstream media and mainstream science. It's not as bad as boomers, but it's still there. But as you project forward with the generations, the more alternative sources of information they've had, the more likely they are to be skeptical of what's going on in the world. And Zillennials are interesting because it's really the last echo of the 20th century. It's the last echo of an analog childhood. They still had some semblance of watching cable TV and some semblance of that old world before everything completely changed into the new digital landscape that we find ourselves in. There was a lot of programming to them as well, though. They weren't completely free of it, and almost more disturbing than even things I witnessed as a child, particularly with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider and that whole iCarly, Hannah Montana type of programming, type of shows that they were watching. I didn't ever watch these shows because it was just outside of my age gap. I saw the advertisings for them on TV, but of course, I never watched it because it was beyond me. It was past me at that point, so I never really sat down and watched it. I think if there is a Zillennial out there who did watch these shows, there is an avenue for someone to do breakdowns on that. I'm not going to go through them and dissect them because I just can't. But just from what I've seen from other side glances and analysis, like it's just completely creepy stuff. And you thought Nickelodeon was going to calm down a bit and kind of lay it down and not be so demented, but they really ramped it up to the very last moment that they were relevant and how degenerate they were and what they were promoting. So they suffered a lot of that. And it's interesting because Zillennials, I think they have more of this winner takes all mentality. Winner takes all mentality compared to core millennials. Core millennials want to be like collectivists. They want to be Harry Potter. They want to have a group and click up. Whereas Zillennials seem more individualistic. They want to play Fortnite. They want to watch Hunger Games. They want to be at the top of the battle royale. They want to take everything for themselves and have that mentality where it's not enough to succeed, but others must suffer. And of course, that's not necessarily a bad thing to have in some sort of balance within your own trajectory in life. You want to succeed, you need to be competitive, especially nowadays. And sometimes the glory of watching others fail is taken into account too, because it's not only enough that you have to succeed, others must fail. And that's kind of how they were brought up, which makes sense because their parents, for the most part, would have been later Gen Xers. Now, I know the whole parentage thing gets a little bit controversial because I said that millennials had baby boomer parents. Well, I got some heckin' sorcerinos for you if you want to really hash that out and if you really want to die on the hill that Gen X were the parents of core millennials, because you are wrong. And even I know quite a bit of Zillennials who had baby boomer parents as well. Like, these boomers just did not stop reproducing. It's actually insane if you think about it, how late boomers were really pushing it, trying to have as many offspring as possible, or just offshooting their reproductive habits until really late in life. But yeah, they had Gen X parents for the most part. And with that comes that individualism, that nihilism, that hangover from what they have embedded into them. And that's why they are more competitive, more individualistic, and edgier. They have a bit of more of an edge to them. Millennials kind of will get their feelings hurt a lot more than what Zillennials will do, and they're kind of the last gasp of a ethnically homogenous or somewhat ethnically homogenous West. Of course, America has always been more, 75 to 80%. Canada was 90% European up until these people were around. And Europe, of course, would have been super majority. That's all shifted within their already short lives. So they've witnessed a lot in terms of the transformation of their own nation states, which I think has also kind of led to the heaviness that I've noticed about them. There is a heaviness about them that they carry. There is Agent K, I think, really sums up Zillennials a lot. Agent K is like the totem of the Zillennial male experience in the West, because there is this kind of feeling of being out of control of your own story, or maybe you're not even witnessing your own story, that you're just a secondary character for a larger story, like how Kay was in relation to the Blade Runner series in general, which is what is going on with Zillennials, because they're kind of watching their own storylines kind of spiral out of control. And for me, when I look at them, it's hard to do analysis. Like, when I talk about core millennials, it's like, okay, like, this is my bread and butter. This is what I've seen my whole life. It's easy to talk about. But when you're talking about other generations, it's largely based off of your own observations and the people you've been around. And so the vast majority of women I've dated were Zillennial women. And I have to say, I prefer them 1000% to the millennial women I've dated, which I think really was only one, and it was terrible. Because at least with Zillennial women, you can play Heroes of Might and Magic, and they're not going to complain about it. They're more likely to actually play with you and enjoy that. A lot of the taboos that millennial women don't like about what we do as guys has kind of folded with Zillennial women, which I appreciate a lot. Because millennial women they will complain about you playing video games, but at the same time, all they do all day is go on social media and Netflix, and they think they're superior to you because of this. It's really frustrating. But with Zillennial women, that doesn't seem to be such a big issue. So the like the peak millennial actress would be Emma Stone. Emma Stone, 100%. That's peak millennial. Okay, like all those movies, Easy A and Super Bad and whatever, Zombieland, all those movies. That was like core millennial. And from what I've uncovered, like core Zillennial is more Sydney Sweeney, Zendaya type of stuff, which I don't really understand the appeal of Zendaya. It feels astroturf, it feels fake, and it's just obviously being pushed. So I'm trying to figure out what like the peak Zillennial movie would be. And I guess you guys are gonna have to tell me what that is. A lot of people were saying the movies I've covered, which would be like zombie, like Scott Pilgrim and Zombieland, but I think really the peak Zillennial movie is Hunger Games and that whole saga, which is funny because that's like that type of, and it's also a lot of stuff with zombies in general. Zombies seem to be like Generation Z, Generation Zillennial, and zombies. It seems to be very connected. And there was a huge zombie era like 10, 15 years ago that everybody was obsessed with zombies. Zombie go boom. How do we survive the zombie apocalypse? We had to get our bushcraft skills up. And there were games that were hitting the forefront like DayZ, which I was a big fan of. There were, Zombieland. There was just so much, and The Walking Dead, of course, massive, massive Zillennial series, I think. So, what is it about zombies that really hit hard for that group of people? And I think it is that feeling of being disconnected from all the people around you, feeling like a foreigner to all the people around you, feeling like a different species to all the people around you, all the people around you not feeling like they are part of your ecosystem. Just a total and complete alienation from society around you, and the feeling that the society around you is rotting to its absolute core to the point where the people are rotting as well. And I think that's kind of their experience, is feeling disconnected, because I just have to think of my own experience and then just subtract 5 years, and that's Zillennial. So when you are in high school, like I graduated high school, we get hit by the massive recession. You're in high school, you're getting hit by the massive recession. I'm sure all your teachers are doom spiraling you, telling you, things are hard out there. Maybe that's why they went into a bit more practical type of fields than millennials, because we like millennials, like everybody I knew went to like college to be a drummer or art school or just all these meme. I mean, I'm guilty too. Meme degrees. We all went for these meme degrees. Follow your dreams, follow your passions. You can do whatever you want, which I'm still a fan of, by the way. I'm still a fan of following your passions. I mean, that's what I'm doing here. You know, people telling me my whole life like I'm not allowed to do what I want. Instead, I just do it anyway, which I think everyone should do. But the Zillennials, I think, after witnessing the crash that happened while in high school, probably was a big wake up call for them. And they realized, okay, we have to be a bit more practical here. We have to be a bit more, and I'm not saying, trade max, but maybe, they went into finance, they went into law, they went into medicine, they went into emergency workers more so than core millennials did, who just wanted to be writers and be musicians and be something special for the most part anyway. I mean, my experience, that was the case. But with Gen Z, Zillennial cusp people, they seem to be a bit more practical in general, which is good. I think it's good, but there's a lot to uncover here because what's going on with them is, again, 5 years away from me, because they say it's 1993 to 1998 or so. Some people were saying 91 to 99. No, I don't think so, because you have to take into account like the core memories. And for a lot of them, 9/11 is not a core memory. They were still too young. So I think that's kind of like the cutoff point. Like if you're kind of fuzzy about 9/11, then you're more a Zillennial. If you actually remember 9/11, you are more core millennial. And they would have had way more social media and cell phone usage in school starting in freshman year. Not grade 9, by the way, freshman year, okay? Some people have found out that I'm a filthy Canuck socialist. Someone said all Canadians are socialists. You goddamn socialists. Look, all I want to do is be a pioneer and chop down trees and be a lumberjack, but they outlawed that. They outlawed my ancestral ways. So I would rather be doing that than being a socialist or a progressive. I don't know. And speaking of progressives, I remember because there was a lot of Zillennials around in my music scene, and this was like the first gasp, the first whispers I've noticed of this era that was about to dawn on us. And you know what was the anthem that ushered in that era? It was MGMT Kids. I don't know if I said the name right for the band, but you know what I'm talking about. That band and all those people who were trying to be like band, they were all Zillennial kids that I remember of. And that song was like the ushering in of the 20 teens progressive era, because for some reason all these kids, they became stomp clap ho, they became those types of proto hipsters, and then they kind of mutated into becoming progressive leftists because, well, we know why. When Occupy Wall Street was happening, the left was getting pretty aware of banking and how corrupt it is, and the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street. There was things between both sides of the political spectrum that people were waking up to. So then the Glowies had to step in and then set up the progressive leftist movement to take away from that whole scene. So, but there was definitely a lot of Zillennial people moving to that direction, which is interesting because I always hear about how hecking based Gen Z is and how hecking based millennials are. And, there's truth to that, but please give me a gender and racial breakdown when you try to make these claims, because I'm telling you, if you're looking at the female side of it, as we've seen, it's not going to be the case. And from all the science data I've seen, it's just like they're like millennials, but even like depending on the location, it's like they're 2 points more progressive or 2 points more right wing. Like it's not a huge, massive awakening that's going on with these people. From what I can tell, maybe I'm wrong, but from the ones I've met, I haven't seen any anything over the top in terms of some huge trad awakening that has been kind of memed out there. Because people want to have hope. You want to have hope, but it's the Kali Yuga. Things just get progressively worse until Ragnarok happens. So, I mean, to me, I don't see any. I'm not the type of guy who's going to say, "Oh yeah, the horseshoe theory, and it's going to slingshot back, and we're all going to be back, and the women are going to be back in the kitchen in on about 20 years." No. Oh, if things get economically worse, people are going to become traditional again. It's like, no. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything getting better anytime soon. Things are getting progressively worse. That's just my take. But there are pockets, of course. The Hyperborean pocket, where we're reviving our Vril. Of course, that's going to be a type of subsect of people who are going to be, and a lot of Zillennials seem to be resonating with that, and that's great. But of course, it's going to be mostly guys who are. Yeah, when people talk about the younger generation, I really need to see. I hate, and that's another thing about this stuff. It's like I'm talking about millions of people here, okay? When in reality, I'm talking about white people mostly because that's my experience. I'm not in a diverse region. I haven't lived a diverse life. So when I'm doing these generational breakdowns, I'm largely speaking about white people. So there's that too. Yeah, they were the last gasp of ethnically homogenous Canada for sure. And I think the last gasp of somewhat of a analog childhood, and they got to, but they also got to experience the golden age of gaming of the 2000s, the heroic golden age of the solar Argarthian knights that were the 2000s. And that's probably another reason why so many Zillennial guys like my content, because I think those games kind of inspired them in a lot of ways to type of kind of have this more heroic view of the world and not just have such a mundane, dry, empirical, science-based, atheist-based view of reality. There seems to be more of a heroic impulse within Zillennials. The Zillennials are more solar-oriented, vertical Hyperboreans, whereas core Millennials are more telluric, downward, horizontal, chthonic, Lemurian types, if you know what I'm talking about, right? And so that's probably why too, within the guys anyway, there's going to be more of a resonance there with my content in them. Because yeah, it's I was looking at the breakdowns, and it's people from 25 to 40 mostly, but it's mostly people under 30, like from 20 to 30. So to me it's interesting because I thought it was going to be more people my age and older, but clearly not the case. Probably because I play video games too, that makes them cringe. Even though I could probably bench more than these people who are complaining about video games. But that doesn't matter. And maybe I'll do more breakdown videos for Zillennial type movies. Give me some ideas below of what movies you think are like peak Zillennial. I like to think like Zombieland and Hunger Games. I think that's peak Zillennial for me. But let me know what you think. Because I was watching my analytics and my old 500 Days of Soimer and Scott Pilgrim videos kind of picked up a bit, which is completely hilarious to me because I was watching the Scott Pilgrim video. I was such a Chad back then. I literally did not give a single fuck because I'm making this review and I just have a notebook in front of me and you could like hear me flipping through the notes and I'm like not even editing out any of the pauses or anything. I'm just sipping my coffee, reading the notes, ripping on Michael Cera the whole time. It's pretty funny to me. And then, of course, my other one with my awesome editing of how to not get copyright struck. So that was fun too. But yeah, I was watching my old videos. I was like, I did not care at all about pacing, and it's just like whatever. Like, who cares back then? Like, I didn't think anybody was gonna watch my videos. I didn't think I was gonna get 400,000 people watching my forest video. I didn't really try that hard to make it good. You know, imagine if we had a Hyperborean studio. But yeah, I want to do some more media reviews, a couple of candidates coming up right now would either be, what's it called? That movie, Juno, or another soy movie would be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Soy. It's movies like that, because there's just something about those movies that is like a peak millennial thing. But I think Zillennial guys, Zillennials in general, weren't really as susceptible to that. I think they were a bit more suspect of what was going on in the dating market compared to millennials, because millennials were kind of sold this whole like fairy tale world that, you know, you're going to meet your girl at the corporate office, or you're going to meet this girl at college and everything's going to be wonderful. And which, you know, I have had experiences like that, but you know, the baggage involved, you know, the thing about those movies, which I, watching back, I realize now is what I didn't really articulate in the greatest way, was my critique of Scott's masculinity, but I didn't really flesh out what it should be contrasted against. And it kind of maybe in certain ways comes across as a bit Jim Bro-y in ways, because I do kind of talk about how pathetic his, you know, his frame is and stuff like that. And that's mostly because, and when was it, a couple of years ago, like that was my peak gym days. Like I was hitting the gym every day. I was benching like, you know, 3 plates. I was freaking teed out of, like, I wasn't on tee, but like that was like my peak tee days. Like I was a different guy back then. But now I think the contrast I want to offer, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but it's also relevant to like the whole Zillennial thing too, is that these movies and these guys, because it's also, I think Zillennials grew up with a lot of these movies too, is that the real problem I have is that there is no boundaries. The guys do not give the women any boundaries whatsoever, and they just let them walk all over them. And no matter what, they're just there for them. They're there for all the baggage. They're there to be treated like crap. They're there for everything. And it's just like, I want to articulate that true masculinity isn't like you have to be this ubermensch, Jim Bro, barbarian, Conan the Barbarian type of guy, Bronze Age grind set, okay? And I understand why people want to divert into that. That's a separate video, but true masculinity is having those strong boundaries, that self-respect, that spine. It goes way beyond the physical. It goes way beyond the physique. It goes way beyond anything like that. The true masculinity that we were not given or told to embody is boundaries, borders, having self-respect, not taking this type of behavior, and understanding your own value, and not just being these doormats. With all these guys in these movies are just doormats being led around by the nose by these trauma mind controlled MK Ultra sex kittens. And it's just terrible. It's terrible. And people think that, oh, it's just art, brah. It's not that deep. You know, life imitates art. Okay? I don't think art imitates life. I think life imitates art. And I think that, you know, people get influenced subconsciously by media. I truly believe that. And I believe that there's a concerted effort to neuter people. But yeah, I like to thank all the Zillennials out there who are listening, and everybody who's listening. Really, I never, like, I thought maybe 5K would be my cap. 5K, I was like, okay, I could have my little micro channel. I can talk about some niche stuff. So people are going to like it. We'll have a good time. It'll be fun. I don't know where we are now, but 37K It's a lot. It's not like massive or anything. It's still kind of, still pretty niche in the grand scheme of things. You really realize when you get this many subs, it's like, it's not really that much really in the grand scheme of things. It's like, I'm still myself. I'm still me. I still make my videos on my PC in my room. Like, it's not like some grand, glorious thing that, some people have made it out to be. Like, some people say, "Oh, you're famous now." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm extremely regular, actually. And that's another thing, is that I've realized that big number equal good is really not a good way to live your life, and you're never going to get fulfilled by big number equal good. It should be, you know, keep keep to your core and keep to your passions, and you'll never run out of things to talk about. You'll never run out of things to talk about if you keep to what you're passionate about. And another thing I would like to say to all the Zillennial guys out there, because I know you've been browbeat your whole life by the Karentocracy that we live in. If you're halfway good at anything, just don't stop doing it. Just keep doing it and just brute force it to make it work. Because I don't think I'm a genius. I don't think I'm particularly talented. I don't think I'm that articulate, really. I'm a quiet guy. I rarely ever talk to people. I'm not extroverted at all. And I mean, now I'm doing this almost full time, so it's like, if you have anything you're passionate about and you're halfway decent at it, just don't stop doing it and just brute force it to make it work. Okay. I mean, if I can do it, I'm telling you guys can figure out what you want to do and make it. Because you know what? Zillennials, they destroyed our economy. They destroyed our prosperity. They took everything away from us that we were supposed to do. They gave us this map of life. They said, "Oh, go to college, get a job, get a house." And then they rug pulled everyone and said, "Oh, actually, you don't work hard enough to do this. You're not talented enough for this. You're not worthy enough to get all this stuff. So, and by the way, it's your fault because you're not hustling and grinding enough." Meanwhile, previous generations barely had to do a quarter, I don't know, a tenth of the effort required involved in acquiring basic assets like it is now. And they want to try to pretend like this is not the case and that we're just whining. I get that a lot, from older generations on my millennial videos. This is just whining. You know what? Whining seems to be effective. Every demographic who whines seems to be getting something out of it. Maybe wine maxing is the new meta, and maybe we need to start doing it, okay? We gotta find our niche. What's our wine? Okay, I'm gonna talk about my Celtic heritage and how we've been downtrodden and we need reparations. Okay, we gotta find our angle. What's your angle? Okay, whining seems to be the only thing that gets anything done in this day and age. Unfortunately, as much as I begrudge that, I wish it was completely not like that. But it's not whining, because if you're trying to find out what the problem is and you talk about it, okay? If you're like this, take it on the chin, rub dirt on it. Like, it's easy to say that when you guys had a way more prosperous society, and to grandstand and to hold it over everyone's head. Yeah, okay, easy for you. If you guys were in our position, you guys would be completely broken. You wouldn't have the tools to survive. So despite everything that's been thrown against us, we're still inventing our own. I had to invent my own job because there are no jobs where I live. Okay, do you understand that, boomer? Zillennials are inventing an entire new genres of work because there's simply not anything left for them to do because of you guys. Right? And I'm blaming them. Yeah, I am blaming them. I don't care. Because, yeah, you could say it's nefarious outside forces, but who is complicit with it? Who benefits from it? Who benefits from it still? They do the most. So, yeah, I am going to not let them off the hook. I don't care if I'm creating intergenerational strife. Oh, I'm dividing and conquering people, whatever. I don't, I'm past that point. So, yeah, like, despite everything, we have to go out there and we have to literally reinvent the wheel because they took it from us. And I think Zillennials are in a really good place to go down that route because you have that hybrid aspect to yourselves. You have the analog and you have the digital skill base, which I think gives them a huge upper hand over core millennials in the sense like core millennials are kind of, we're getting older, we're kind of cringe, we're at a touch, we're maybe a bit too idealistic. We don't really have that fight in us, that killer instinct that I see a lot more in the younger generation. We want to kind of get along, play along to get along. A lot of circle jerking happening. The millennial guys just kind of get into these groups and they get into like these niches online, and then it's just them like circle jerking each other and not challenging each other's opinions or ideas anymore, and they get into these little like closed economy niches, which is kind of like not my thing. I don't like circle jerking people. It's just kind of it's not for me. It's not for me. And but I see, Zillennials have a bit more of that individualist streak. And people criticize individualism, like, oh, individualism is the fall of the West. It's like, well, total and complete nihilistic individualism to the utmost limit. Yeah, that's bad. But you got to have a little bit of that Nietzschean in you, that little bit of will to power to kind of get anywhere in this day and age. So I don't think it's completely, but it's gotta, you gotta balance it out. And so yeah, I mean, advice maxing, don't take advice from me because I'm old and you guys are gonna have to navigate your own lives better. But the only kind of thing I can say is like, yeah, if you have a passion, if you're somewhat competent at something, double down on it and brute force it until you can make it work because you guys had the coof in your 20s, and that, I think that's really, I mean, I was like right at the end of my 20s, but you guys were in your prime having to deal with that, and like that just feels so like so much was robbed. It just such a waste to me that had to go like that. And then after that, now we have this whole recession thing that may or may not be happening right now. People are kind of in denial, but it's pretty obvious to me that there's another recession happening. And you guys aren't really that young anymore either. You guys are, I realized once I hit 25 that I'm no longer in the youth zeitgeist, and everything kind of seemed to be like moving like rapidly, lightning fast. Okay. Out with the old, in with the new. Millennials are done. Okay. Gen Z's in. You guys are done. So like that's going to happen to you guys probably now, right now. It's like the time that that's going to happen. And there is like this kind of thing I've noticed. It's like this obsession with youth that is more prevalent now than it was before. And I think it's better to lean on the side of admiring youth than maybe, I think it's been out of balance where we admire old people way too much and we denigrate the youth way too much. But the only thing is I worry is that people who cling way too much to their youth, I don't know if that's going to be the best look when you're in your 30s and you're sup my fellow kids ing. Yeah, I don't know. Like Robert Pattinson the other day. Oh, I'm Gen Z. It's like, dude, you're like almost 40. Okay. Like, we get it. Like, you don't want to, I don't know. To me, it's kind of like, ugh. But maybe some people can explain why that's better. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, guys, the Fimbulwinter, the long winter of their lives, Agent K bleeding out in the snow. That's just kind of what I think when I think of Zillennial. It's just this kind of last gasp before something completely different transpired. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Really appreciate all the new subs. Really appreciate all the new members. Raise the banners. 40,000 Hyperboreans to break the armies of Ishtar.